What is the strangest experience you have had with a friend's parent? Bro, everyone's comments is talking about how their friend's parents did some sexual or deep it. My strangest experiment, me and my friend's dad, who I didn't know very well, suddenly had a staring contest over dinner and we just kept on having them after that. Never talked, nothing happened, just had a staring contest every time I had dinner. I was 10 at the time. Nothing ducked up lol. I was 12 years old, over at a friend's place. When I had to leave to go home, his mother came running after me screaming that I couldn't leave. I was already halfway down a set of stairs and just knew something was wrong. So I said I had to and continued on. She was still screaming for me to come back. I told my parents when I got home and they looked at each other. Then nothing more happened. A few weeks later I was over there again. Everything was normal. My friend asked if I wanted to sleep over. He had the nerve, so of course I wanted to. My parents didn't let me though. True story. That ducking night his mother beat him to death with a wooden boat he had made in woodshop class. She was a diagnosed schizophrenic. My parents knew. They told me after his death. Just the slow realization that my best friend's cool dad was battling some major demons. When you're young, having an adult who will take you shooting, let you drive their truck on the back roads at 11-12, teach you how to weld and fix cars, is amazing. Then you get older and realize that you were shooting guns in the middle of a suburb. Your friend's dad was drinking and needed a ride home and none of the welding instruction was done with proper safety gear. And you realize that the adult you idolized and looked up to was an alcoholic endangering kids. We were whitewater rafting in Maine. I was in a truck with my friend, a different friend's dad, two 10-year-old boys going to the pickup spot at the end of the rafting route. I'm in the passenger seat and the dad is driving. I was about 17 at the time, and the topic of being a man came up. He talked about how sometimes you just need to follow your dreams. We're all listening at this point. He then tells us this isn't his first life. Told us he moved to the West Coast when he was real young and started a family, wife, kids. He said liked them decently enough but he wanted to get more out of life. So one day he went out to pick up some milk and never went back. I don't know how the kids in the truck took the story, but my friend and I were pretty WTF the rest of the trip. Edit. Your equals your. In high school, my friend was dating a guy and we both were invited by him to his house. His mom was super mean though and acted like us being there was awful. I rang the doorbell and was invited inside by the mom. I was there for an hour and had to go outside to get something out of my car. I came back inside and heard you excusing. I'm sorry. Yes? You didn't ring the doorbell before barging into my home. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoop. Should I go back outside? We wait to be invited inside in this house. I went back outside and the door was closed on me. I rang the doorbell and heard the mom say, "Who is it?" "Hi, it's Rustmat here to see your son." "Just a moment." Opens door, "Please come inside." Turns out every time you leave the house even for a second she expected the pageantry of a first invite. When I was in high school, I was having dinner at my girlfriend's parents' place one night and she has two older brothers that were there as well. So I was setting my plate down at the table when suddenly I feel someone slap my ass. I turn around and it was her dad. We both just looked at each other and then he apologizes and say he thought I was one of his sons. I could tell he was pretty embarrassed. That was an awkward and lol. Especially because he didn't like me very much. Senior year of high school. I asked out a girl right before school ends for the summer. She said she wanted to stay friends. Bummer. But at least I'll never kick myself for not trying. I was still invited to her graduation party at her house so I went, as I also enjoyed being friends with her regardless of any romance. At the party her dad met me in the kitchen and patted me on the back saying bummer about her saying no. If it was up to me you'd already be my son-in-law. Not sure how to respond, I awkwardly laughed and said thanks. Not 20 minutes later he walked into a shed outside and asked us teenagers if we wanted to see a magic trick. He then proceeded to pull a dove out of his pants. A living, breathing dove. The guy was as one of the nicest people I've met, but I never knew what he was going to say or do next. I've known this boy since we were babies. Our parents always thought it was adorable that we were always together. His dad was convinced we would end up married. Basically my entire life his dad would try to get us together. He went as far as to send his son to my university so we could finally fall in love and get married. Very creepy. When I married my husband, I got a Facebook message from his dad saying how disappointed he was in me for not marrying his son. I blocked him. I caught my friend's parents having sex in their living room. Her dad had the biggest D I've ever seen. A friend's father was absolutely convinced that I was only friends with his daughter for money. They weren't exactly rich, maybe a tiny bit better off than we were, but it was impossible for him to know that. When her Dreamcast needed a new cable after one of her pets chewed through it, he came storming into her room while we were hanging out and demanded to know why I thought he would buy me something. My friend had to jump in and explain that it was her cable, not mine. He'd complain if I spent the night because he had to feed me, like I was a stray cat. It was incredibly weird. The worst part is he made extremely inappropriate jokes all throughout dinner when I was there. I was maybe 14. Looking back, I'm starting to wonder if he wasn't just high. My friend explained that he kept one fingernail long to pick his nose, but I've been told that is not its only purpose. None of his behavior ever made sense. Edit. Just to clarify, since people keep asking, he was not Asian. The whole family was very white. When I was 15, one of my best friend's mothers was a raging alcoholic. Every day she'd start drinking in the afternoon and be blackout drunk by 9 PM. Whenever I was over, the drunker she got, the more fixated she'd become with my bust. She didn't have much herself and was convinced I was wearing padded bras. She even made me take off my bra one night to give to her to inspect. We were all really uncomfortable, but it was the only way to get her to stop talking about my breasts. She was pushing me to date her daughter. Hardcore. We were 10. We picked up my friend's mom one night at a bar cause she was drunk, and on the way back she kept yelling, "I'm not going to duck you," to me in the backseat, and I was high out of my mind. But yeah, that was the strangest 1-hour ride of my life. When I was a teenager, I found out that my friend's father called me headlights because I had big breasts. Another friend's father liked to put his hands all over me. I avoided going over there as much as possible. In high school, my girlfriend's mom would let us drink and do drugs at her place. At the time we thought it was cool, until one incident when we realized how truly ducked this woman was. One night we had all been drinking, the mother included. Somehow one of the fellows, an odd friend of my girlfriend's, ended up passed out in the bathtub. Now I can't be sure to what extent she did, but at one point I walked into the bathroom to piss and found the mum fondling this kid. We were maybe 15 at the time. Suddenly my whole paradigm shifted and I realized how messed up it was that this woman in her 40s would let the lot of us teens hang around using drugs and alcohol in her home occasionally with her. Before anyone asks, people do ask when I tell the story if this woman was good looking. No, she was not. Not on your drunkest day. My lifelong friend's dad is a nurse practitioner. When I was 19, I lost a lot of weight in a short amount of time. So I went in to see him. He gave me a rectal exam, that is, stuck his fingers up my butt. He had big fat fingers, so it was painful and extremely awkward. I'll occasionally get a, "Hey, remember that time my dad stuck his fingers up your butt?" from my buddy. I was 16, hanging out in a friend's basement. Her mom comes down and chats for a bit, then asks if I want to learn how to make GHB. Now I'm good. Edit. Correct, GHB equals gamma hydroxybutyrate. I was coming back from the annual county fair with a childhood friend and his cousin, heading to my friend's house. Unfortunately, I got really sick at the fair and was sprawled out in the back of my friend's cousin's car, trying my best not to puke everywhere. It didn't help that we live out in the mountains, so the drive was unbearable. Out of desperation for my stomach pain to pass, I didn't even turn on the lights when I got to his house and literally fell onto the bed in the dark, only to find his dad under me snoring. Apparently my friend's dad was staying up waiting for us to get home and fell asleep on his bed. I obviously woke him up and he freaked out, turned on the lights, and yup, he was in his underwear. When he saw it was us, he laughed at the situation, but it was definitely one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life. I'm just glad I didn't throw up on him. Several 2. My friend and I were sitting in his kitchen and suddenly an unbelievable horrible smell hits us. We frantically look for the cause when my friend goes down the hallway where the bathroom is and asks his dad why he left the door open. Next one. Same friend. Same father. I step into his flat and walk down the hallway when I pass the bathroom door and see his father sitting there, door wide open and grunting. He doesn't look up when he hears me and asks me, assuming I am my friend, who just rang the door, while a deep flap underlines his words. Shocked look when he sees me in this awkward silence of two people who just shared it. Had a weird drunken hookup with a friend's mother once. My friend had moved back in with her mom when we were in our late 20s. Their mom lived around the corner from me, so it was not uncommon for them to invite me over for drinks, dinner, hangout. One night I was walking back from a bar and my friend texted me to come over and have a drink. I was only a block or two away, so I thought sure, why not, and headed there. I arrived and both my friend and her mother were drunk and listening to music in the lounge room. We all drank some wine together and were talking it. About an hour or two later, my friend just hits the wall and wants to go to sleep. I told her I will go home and walk with her down the hallway, but her mother calls out, "Winter picture. I just poured you another wine," so I put my friend to bed and head back down the hallway to the lounge room. Straight away the mother has changed the music to something more romantic. The lights were dimmed. She tells me to come sit by her and within moments is telling me how I was always a favorite of her daughter's friends and places a hand on my thigh. I'm not going to lie, I always fancied her. She was a top-notch MILF when we were growing up and was flirty, fun type. We made out a little right there on the couch, played with her breasts, and she gave me the most satisfying blowjob I've had to this day. We made loose plans to meet up again, but ultimately decided it was too risky and left it at that, and decided that it would be our secret and never tell anyone. Sadly, she died suddenly last year, and this is the first I've ever told anyone about it. In 4th grade, my best friend lived just down the street from the school, so we would regularly go hang out there after class. Her mom was a dopehead and her stepdad was a drunk, and routinely during sleepovers we would hear them having very loud sex. My friend told me one day she had found a huge orange vibrator in her mom's room and then explained to me what, in fact, that was. A couple weeks later we walked over after school to find the house littered with bright orange shreds. The family boxer had found her mom's vibrator, too. A dad of one of my friends kept urging me to come over and sit in his hot tub with him. My friend wasn't there at the time. Yeah. No. I practically lived over at my friend's house from my mid to late teens. They were a devout Pentecostal family and his dad was treasurer of their church. I go over to their house, walk in, and both parents are immediately in my face. "Did you steal money from US? Someone broke into their roll-top desk and stole $2K from the church funds." They accused me. Then the mother broke down and started crying, sitting on the couch, hands in her face, bawling. Then they all started praying for the return of the money. Then they prayed over me for guidance to do the right thing. I thought, WTH. What they didn't know was that their son, my friend, had his eye on a 2K Nikon F3 camera for a few months and his parents wouldn't buy it for him. What really blew my mind was he bought the camera and they never suspected him of stealing the money, and he never apologized to me for it. Edit. Change prayed to prayed. It's not as bad as some on here, but I will share mine. I was around 11/12 and had this friend from secondary school. We would spend the weekend having sleepovers etc. One weekend after her birthday we went into town, and after her mum told her not to spend her birthday money buying presents for a boy she liked, she did. Long story of over-infatuated teen girl, uninterested teen boy. I think her mum was trying to help her. We were sitting in a cafe with her mum after, and the mum asked, "Did you spend all your birthday money on that boy?" After a tense back and forth with my friend denying and trying to say no, the mum turned to me and asked if she had. I tried to avoid the question. After being told I was not allowed to lie, I had to tell the truth. I told the truth. She had. Friend gets upset. I apologized to friend and say I had to. She asked. Cue mum basically saying I was a D and didn't have to tell her. I could have told her I respected my friend's privacy and I didn't want to say anything. I don't think I ever really hung out at their house again after that. And her mum cornered me at parents' evening trying to have a dig about not spending time with her daughter anymore. I feel bad in hindsight. It wasn't my friend's fault. 12-year-old me just really didn't want to get caught in another family's drama. Oh god yes. At 8 years old, I'm at my friend's house for a sleepover. His parents start arguing over something. I don't remember what it is, but my friend's dad looks straight at me and says, "Never get married." At 8 years old I had no idea what to do with this information, so I just froze. I was in the 6th grade and had just started going over to my best friend's house for the weekend. His dad was sitting on the ledge for the fireplace bumping Hollaback Girl by Gwen Stefani on repeat for a good 45 minutes. Edit. A few times he did go around that track. Not a friend, but an ex. His mother used to basically nice force me into not leaving each time I came over. He was 25 and still lived at home, and she was so eager for me to date him and stick around that she would go out of her way to dote on me aggressively each time I was there. She would find ways to make me stay longer, and even outright say it was rude to leave so soon, and find another board game, or another movie, or another snack, to get me to stay in the house longer. She bought me weird presents, like knickknacks and porcelain figurines. He wasn't a bad dude, but mommy dearest had babied him so much he didn't know how to do anything for himself. He expected to be taken care of by me. Then, 19-year-old, who hadn't ever started college yet, and was working part-time at Dunkin' Donuts, FFS. I still lived at home too. His mom just expected that she could completely enable him and baby him, then hand him off to a girl who would do the same for the rest of his life, which was psycho. We didn't date for long. Went to see a girl my BFF was interested in. They'd seen each other a few times and we were all good friends anyway. Go into her parents' house, walk through to kitchen and she goes into garden to get something, leaving me by the back door. My mate a few paces back on other side of kitchen in front of door that leads to the hall. While waiting for state girl, my mate notices a basket of clean washing on the kitchen worktop that had obviously just been brought in from outside. On top is a pair of red and black frilly panties. My mate thinks it's funny to pick these up, pretend to sniff them and then put them on his head. As he's doing this he's facing me with back to the open doorway to the hall. I literally couldn't speak from shock as behind was the girl's mother stood watching what he was doing. He kinda clocked the expression on my face, slowly turned round and literally just looked at girl's mum and said sorry in a very sheepish voice whilst shamefully taking the panties off his head. The mum said something about them being hers and not the girl's anyway, but by that point we were making a swift exit. Painfully cringy. That was like 25 years ago. Coincidentally my wife now works with the mother and we've met her out at company parties a few times. I don't think she remembers me, but I don't have the courage to ask. I was friends with this boy and we would go to his house after school and his mom would watch me till my mom was done with work. Well, one day we get to his door and there is a note on it saying we need to go to my house. The weird thing was that there was loud music coming from inside. We went to my house and waited and my stepdad and mom came home soon after. My mom obviously found that weird, so she ran over there and come to find out his mom tried to commit suicide. It was really sad, but she seemed to have gotten help and gotten better. But it was an experience I would never forget. Hanging with my best friend after school. Like always, his parents decided to have that last fight that dissolved the marriage. We're laughing and watching TV and the sound of adult voices got louder and louder, until it was shouting and sounds of hysterical crying. It was like a storm rolling in from nowhere. A friend's dad was an artist. We came in from playing one day to see another dad from our school lashed to a cross, butt naked with a huge boner. Artist was doing a painting of Jesus. Later found out crucified dad was gay. The mum of one of my school friends was a renowned nasty itch. Once I was going to some pet show thing with my friend and her parents and felt carsick on the way, so they had to pull over for a minute so I could get some air. This mother sat in the passenger seat, obviously fuming at me for daring to not feel well. A while after this, a different friend was visiting their house and when my name came up, the mother said, "Ella Digo, ugh, she's an insipid little creature, isn't she?" A grown woman to two 15-year-old girls, all because I'd felt carsick in their car one time. I never went to that friend's house again. I was maybe 12-13 years old and staying the night at a friend's house. Her parents took us out to a diner for dinner and my friend's dad was staring at me and finally said, You have very beautiful lips. I froze. It was super weird. Luckily my friend piped up and yelled at her dad for being creepy, took my hand, and we left the table for a while. Her mom said nothing. Was friends with a girl whose dad murdered her mom. I was at their house shortly before it happened and remember him playing a SIG game where he'd hold pillows over our faces and have us raise our hands when we couldn't breathe anymore. Guess how he murdered his wife? One time I'm at my friend's house and his father comes up to me and he asks if I want anything to drink. I politely ask if I could have a glass of water. Dead serious he responds with, "Oh sorry, I don't think we have any water. Would you like some pasta instead?" Thinking it's some kind of joke I say sure. He goes into the kitchen and comes back a little later with a drinking glass full of spaghetti and hands it to me before going back to whatever he was doing. Needless to say, I was quite confused. Edit. Thanks so much for all the upvotes. When we were 18, we were driving around the sketchy part of town fairly later at night, just chatting and singing along to music, wandering about as teenagers do. We were on a double date. I often slept over my friend's house and spent a lot of time with his family. My boyfriend's mom worked with his mom, so he also knew my friend's family well. Friend had been dating his girlfriend for a couple of years, and she of course knew his parents well. We saw his dad's car, which was surprising, as it was at least midnight and he usually went to bed early. We then saw his dad's car pull over and pick up what was clearly a prostitute. We could clearly see and recognize his dad driving, and saw her lean down in the seat toward him as they drove past us. After that we were all very quiet. I drove everyone home and took friend back to my house at his request. I kind of figured he didn't want to confirm that his dad wasn't home, where he should have been, just to maintain the pretense that it may not have been him. And then we all never spoke about it again. But the three of us who saw just had a hard time being comfy around either of his parents again. My younger sister's male friend came out as gay when they were in high school. One night when I was visiting home from college, I was hanging out with my sister while she was browsing Facebook and she called me over because she was getting messages from a different mutual friend's mom. The mom had asked her, "So your friend is gay, right?" And when my sister said yeah, this woman started describing male 6 acts as if to say, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." Really explicit stuff to a 16-year-old girl about a 16-year-old boy. I told my sister to ask her how much she had had to drink that night. And when she did, the woman didn't respond anymore. It got a step weirder when we met up with the woman's sons, our friends, and told them about the weird that their mother had said. And their response was to think it was hilarious instead of be embarrassed. This actually just happened about a year ago. I was at my friend's birthday party. It was a backyard barbecue with family and friends. There was a lot of drinking starting at noon and going into the wee hours of the morning. I ended up tripping on the patio and skinning my knee. My friend's parents invited me inside to get cleaned up. They sat me on the kitchen counter and cleaned my knee. My friend's mom went upstairs to get a band-aid. While she was gone for just that 5 minutes, my friend's dad got real close to me and said, "I want to duck you. I want to duck you right here, right now." I had no idea how to respond. His wife was just in the other room. I just stared at him in disbelief. I don't think I ever actually provided an answer before his wife came back. He then took my drink and poured it down the drain, saying, "No more drinking for you." Edit. I'm sorry for anyone that thought I was underage. I was old enough to be drinking legally in the US. Oh, I just remembered another one. My high school boyfriend's mom instructed me on how to give myself a breast exam at my boyfriend's birthday party, in which I was the only girl. Gave me a pamphlet with nipples on it and everything. And not even like, pull you aside, talk quietly, full on before we have cake. Rusma, I think it's very important you learn this. When I was like 9 or something, my friend's dad brought cheesecake to a family event at school. I was talking to my female classmate, and the dad of my friend walks over to the two of us, takes a bite out of his pie, looks at both of us, and goes goddamn. This cake is better than 6, and walks off as if he wasn't talking to 2 9-year-olds. And plus that narcissistic mother ducker baked the damn thing. And yes, it was ducking delicious. Enough to rival 6. It would have to be some pretty bad six I guess, cause there was some damn good cheesecake. In maybe 9th grade, I was hanging out at one of my friend's places. Somehow, it came up that the dad had recently gone to a wine tasting. Me, being a naive high school freshman, didn't know much about wine tastings or alcohol in general, except for the cliche that you normally spit to not get drunk. This led to me asking, "Did you spit or swallow?" I still haven't heard the end of it.